Hi everyone, this is Rion Paper. In today's video, I want to talk about inks, fountain pen inks for spring. Now, it may seem a little early. It's only February. It is freezing cold here in the Netherlands, but it is very sunny. The sky is blue. It's when it's not too windy, you can actually already feel the sun. It's starting to be more than just a decorative sphere of light somewhere up in the sky. You can actually feel it on your skin, and that is when it starts to feel like spring for me. So I love winter, but I am always so ready for spring when we are nearing the end of winter. So let's get into it. Let's swatch some spring inks. So first, let's talk a little bit about supplies. I'll be swatching on this Tomoe River paper. This is the original Tomoe River paper. It's a notebook that I've had for a while from Hobonichi. These are just stamps that I put on the front. I have this dip pen. This is a Pilot Iro Utsushi in fine. I'll mostly be using the sort of rounded back end to do a swatch, and I'll be using the nib to write the name of the inks. I have a couple of inks. I have this, I call it my sample vial holder. It's not, it's just I just like ripped this off something, but it works fine. I have a glass of water to rinse my supplies, and then I have an old towel to dry them with. So yeah, let's talk about inks. I have not really picked a specific number of inks. I think there will be 9 inks that I'm gonna show you in some vague sort of rainbow color, rainbow order. With spring, I mostly associate lighter inks, brighter inks, so sort of light but colorful. But I'll just go in and talk about each ink as we go. This is just my opinion, inks that I associate with spring. I could have easily picked double or maybe even 3 times the amount of inks that go with spring. And you know what? You don't have to have the same associations with spring at all. Maybe your springs are like black and dark brown, because honestly, that's often what it looks like outside. The soil is still very barren. The sky will be gray a lot of the time. Spring here in the Netherlands means a lot of rain. So your spring colors can be very different, and that is totally fine. This is just for illustrative amusement goals, whatever purposes. First ink, Schneider Pastel Apricot. Schneider inks are not talked about enough, I think. They are very affordable, at least where I live. They have a very small range of colors, maybe that's why, and all of them are very light, but they are so nice. This apricot one, is a sort of coral orange, and it's lovely. It reminds me of a lot of the spring flowers. I'm gonna try and remember to work from right to left because I'm left-handed and I don't want to end up smudging all of the ink. And the fun thing is, I usually associate oranges with autumn because of the obvious autumn leaves. However, I think it was last year when I was picking a color palette for spring for my fountain pens. I realized how many spring flowers are orange when I just like look outside the window when I'm on my bike. So I thought, you know what, actually orange is a pretty good spring color. And this sort of corally orange is one that I would usually not associate with autumn. I would go more for a reddish orange or maybe a brownish orange that's a bit more muted, unsaturated. And I really like this pale orange coral color for spring. Another color that probably the color I associate most with spring is yellow. It's a bit of a polarizing color because I'll admit the one that I picked for spring is one that I don't gravitate towards a lot for writing because it is very light. However, if you don't write like in a dark room that is not very well lit, but if you like write with good daylight, I think the ink is fine. But yeah, it's definitely not for everyone. But this is Gerbin Bouton d'Or or Buttercup, and it is a bright, bright yellow. And actually, yellow is another one of those colors that I kind of associate with most seasons, except for maybe winter. But in summer, I would pick a yellow that leans a little bit more towards orange, kind of the way you see this ink in the bottle. Like more of a citrus yellow maybe. And then in autumn, I would go for a brown, golden leaning yellow. But I think for spring, this super bright yellow is perfect. And it's nice. You can actually see as this Schneider apricot is drying, it's almost dry now. It's a lot more pink or coral leaning than when it was wet and it was a bit more orange. Now I picked two greens, and that is because I think that Diamine Spring Green, because of its name and because it's a bit more pale, would sort of objectively be a more spring color, but I like Diamine Meadow better. So I'm just going to swatch both of them and let you decide. So we're going to start with Spring Green. And I actually quite like it on the page right now, but I think as it dries, it gets a little more flat. It loses a bit of its vibrancy. And I feel like Meadow doesn't do that as much. Meadow is definitely a bit more of a grassy green. Meadow also has a little bit of black shading, black sheen, sorry. And I find that Spring Green doesn't really do that. So that might be another determining factor if you prefer one over the other. I want to go right, but I also want to swatch it next to this one. So I'm just going to do it here. So that is Diamine Meadow. You can see that they are similar greens. They are both sort of grassy greens, but Spring Green is definitely lighter. Meadow is a bit darker, a bit more of a true medium green. But they are both lovely, lovely greens for spring. Then for blues, I also picked two. And that is because there are two types of blue that I associate with spring. One is a very light blue that reminds me a bit of the sky, of water. And the other is a sort of slightly purple leaning blue, which would be this one, which I see in a lot of the flowers outside that bloom in spring. So the first one we've got, the more sky watery blue, is A Dip in the Pool by Diamine. And this is a Cult Pens exclusive ink. There will be two Cult Pens exclusive inks in this lineup, which may not be as accessible to everybody. But I still figured that from the inks that I have in my collection, they are just a really good fit. So you can always try and look for something similar if a Cult Pens exclusive ink is not within your options to get. And as you may have guessed from the name, A Dip in the Pool, this is actually part of the summer ink collection that Diamine put out with Cult Pens. But yeah, I think it goes well with spring. I actually think that if we are talking about a blue ink that I associate with pools and with swimming, I would probably opt for something like Florida Blue, which is even more intense and vibrant and reminds me more of a pool than this color. Although this is probably more that, the color of the tiles of a pool. Anyway, then the next ink we have is Ferris Wheel Press Dusk in Bloom, and I only have a sample of this. If you have any recommendations of inks that might be similar in color, I've actually really been enjoying this shade of blue recently, and I would love to maybe try a similar color from a different brand, because I don't know, I never really love it when I know that inks are a limited edition, and with Ferris Wheel Press I feel like everything is kind of a limited edition because they don't really have a sort of standard color range. So yeah, next to A Dip in the Pool, this definitely looks a bit more purple, a bit more lavender almost. And I think that A Dip in the Pool is actually showing some hints of green as well. So that is Ferris Wheel Press Dusk in Bloom. Now, the next one I found the hardest to pick, and that is because for spring, I knew that I needed to have a pink. However, I am not super fond of pink inks. The only pink so far that I found that I really love is Gerbin Rouille d'encre, but that is a very muted pink, and I don't necessarily associate that with spring so much. So the one that I picked is actually called Sultry Strawberry by Diamine and Colpants. This is from the Fruit collection. And Diamine also has an ink called Wild Strawberry, which is a very punchy, vibrant red, which I absolutely love. Probably one of my favorite red inks out there. But Sultry Strawberry is more, I guess, the inside of a strawberry fruit. Or maybe like when you get something strawberry flavored, like a strawberry yogurt, it's kind of that color. It's a pale, true pink, I guess. Not one that I would probably reach for a lot, but I do think it goes with these colors really, really well. It's also a great ink to remind you of cherry blossoms. And I feel like for that reason, I should have probably picked something from Sailor or Pilot, but all of their cherry blossom or sakura themed inks are either too orange leaning or too like magenta leaning. At least the ones I've tried so far. There's probably something out there that's like super similar to this. So yeah, feel free to share that in the comments if you know of an ink that's similar, because this one is again an ink that might be a little hard to get depending on whether you can easily shop with Colpants or not. And then the last two inks that I have for this collection are both gray inks, because one, I like a neutral to go with all of these brighter colors, and two, realistically, a lot of spring here in the Netherlands at least is very gray. There will be lots of rain, lots of cloudy days. That's just also part of spring. And for that, I decided to pick a more subtle gray and a shimmer ink. Because, well, if you're going to have a gray day, you might as well make it a bit glittery, a bit more exciting, I guess. So let's actually start with that one. That's going to be Ferris Wheel Press April Showers, which is a gray ink with a silver shimmer. And yeah, I mean, April is in spring, so the name fits. And I picked two grays, but I didn't really pick a black or a brown because I don't associate those with spring as much. Although I feel like you could definitely pick some sort of brown that would fit spring, because, I mean, there's always a lot of brown outside. I hope I picked up some shimmer with that. So Ferris Wheel Press. Ooh. I'll show you once the inks have dried a little bit more if we can get some of the shimmer. But I feel like my sample of this ink doesn't have the most shimmer in general, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it very well, but we're gonna try. And the last ink is this one. This is Gerbin Gris Nuage, or Cloud Gray, I believe. So I feel like this is a pretty good one for spring. It's a very, very soft gray. Is the best way to describe it. I feel like some grays can be very harsh and stormy, and this one is just very, very soft. It has undertones of both blue and purple. And somehow I feel like those fit, I guess, winter very well, but also spring. Whereas in autumn, I would probably go for a more of a warmer gray. So the Gris Nuage is definitely still wet, but the others have dried mostly. So let's take a look. We've got the Schneider Apricot ink, very soft coral orange color. Actually one that I should put in a pen ASAP because I haven't yet, and I love, every time I swatch this color, I just love it. Gerbin Boutin d'Or, a very light and bright yellow that is actually, like, it may be hard to read when you're writing with it, but it has a really good flow. Diamine Spring Green, a lovely, soft, almost cabbage green color. And then we have Diamine Meadow, which is more of a grassy green, maybe more of a summer green if you will, but I just prefer it slightly over spring green. Diamine and Culpens, A Dip in the Pool, a very a light true blue, I suppose, with slight hints of green, ever so slight, but nothing too crazy. Ferris Wheel Press Dusk in Bloom, a very soft blurple color. Then we've got Diamine and Culpens Sultry Strawberry, a light pink. April Showers from Ferris Wheel Press. Let's see if we can get some of that shimmer to show up. Oh yeah, there we go, there we go. Wow. And then we've got Gerbin Gris Nuage that, especially on this Tomoe River paper, is showing up a little bit purple, but I feel like that contributes to the spring sky feeling. So these are the inks that I associate with spring and that I really like. And I would love to hear if you have any inks that you associate with spring, if maybe some of your favorites are similar or in similar color ranges, or if there's something super different. Maybe you have very, very different associations with spring, and I would love to hear that. So let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.